Good Wednesday evening to everyone. How are you? It is good to see you, and it is good to be seen by you, or Swamp if you're not in Louisiana. I, of course, am the one and only Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you live, loud and clear on a Wednesday evening. And I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that you are here. Let me ask you a favor. Let me impose on you a little bit if I could. I've been told I'm kind of an imposing dude, so let me lean in a little bit. If this is your first time stopping by, if you've decided to check out this channel, whether you've come from X, whether you popped in from anywhere else on the internet, and you haven't done so already, if you would be so kind, please click the subscribe button and click the bell icon for notification about this and all of our other wonderful live streams that we like to do 5 nights a week right here for your entertainment and your education. And join the group of the smartest and the best looking fans of any 5 night a week classic TTRPG live stream show on YouTube. That's right. You can be part of it. And good evening to you, Jorge Orbital Air, Alan Canning, Tracy Thompson, Damian X247, and all you other fine folks out there lurking in the wings. I am happy that you are here. And let me tell you something. Tonight's episode is brought to you by me. That's right, me. I am tonight's sponsor, and let me tell you about what the old Dungeon Delver has for you. Is your DM one part Jigsaw from the Saw movies and one part Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? So much so that you've just got to roll up character after character after character. Have you got a convention coming up where you're going to be running a first edition adventure of your own creation, and you've got this bevy of characters that you have to make? Or maybe you're just somebody who enjoys first edition and enjoys tinkering with it. Well, have I got the thing for you. I present to you Crom, the character record organization manager tool. That's right, the wonder software, really, of the 21st century. It's right here, guys. It does everything. It does everything that you could possibly need to manage a first edition advanced game character. Let's just take a look here. Let's load up. Who do we have here? We have Ilwin. Whoops. We have somebody who doesn't know his way around the user interface. Silowin. Sorry about that. It was a little off the screen. That's right. Right here, folks, you have a character creation utility to beat the band. Level your character up, drain them levels, dual class if you've got the stats, run a multi-class character, check for psionics, create a bard, switch alignments, add treasure, remove treasure, age your character, save your character as a text file, save your character as an HTML file. This program does it all, and all for the low price of $25, folks. 25 smackers. You want to make a 9th level character? Where did that go? I lost my screen share, guys. I lost my screen share. Anyway, you want to make a 10th level magic user, but you're like, what spells do I pick? Crom will automatically pick a spell book for you. As I said, you can buy equipment. You can equip your character. You can level your character up, come back in and buy that suit of plate mail and that war horse with the chain barding that you couldn't afford once upon a time. Do you have gems and jewelry to sell? there's a built-in gem and jewelry shopping tool that will sell the gems and jewelries at the standard 20% off of list that you get in the player's handbook. Guys, it is an awesome tool. And if this is something you're interested in adding to your arsenal of tools, then hit me up via email or anywhere else on social media, and I'll set it up for you. I think you're going to find it's the best thing to happen to first edition since dice and pencils. A demo, Alan, I'll tell you what, we'll do a demo tomorrow night. John, it rolls dice internally. It does not have a built-in die roller. So anyway, that is tonight's sponsor. Tonight's sponsor is me. And why? What is happening with with stuff here? There we go. That's back where it should be. So, guys, I am happy. I am elated tonight because finally, back from, I think he was on Walkabout in the Outback, if I am not mistaken. My most excellent co-host, KYLE SCHUANT, the Viking Hat GM, will be joining us here momentarily. And let me tell you what, I think he took like a spiral notebook and a pencil nub out there with him because he's got something new. He's got a new creation that he's going to be sharing with us, and I'm hyped about that. So I don't want to keep him waiting any longer, particularly not with the import cost on pistachios these days. So without further ado, welcome a guy who's not just an occasional appearer on the show. He's not just the co-host of this show. He's a friend. He's a personal friend and a guy I like a lot. Everybody, please say hello to the Viking Hat GM, KYLE. How are you, my friend?
Hello, boys and girls. Streaming on my new computer. Yeah, hopefully it all works.
It is nice and crisp and clear, man. That is, you are 5x5, as they say. How the hell have you been, dude?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, all right. It's a little bit chilly here now in Melbourne. So I'm not sure. I can't see my thing. I got a little barometer that tells me the degrees, but it's about 10 degrees or something like that, centigrade. Not Fahrenheit.
Chilly evening. Yeah, not Fahrenheit. You'd be wearing a parka.
It was. I remember years ago on one strength training forum, there was a guy who said that half an hour before his workout, he put his barbell next to the heater. And everyone was calling him a wuss. And then he explained that he was in, I think it was Upper Michigan in the winter. And he said, I don't like it when my skin sticks to the bar. So if it was that cold, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, no, it's wild. And I know I've mentioned this to you before, KYLE, but for our audience, we were gaming back here once. This is more than 15 years ago. I'll tell you that. But we were back here. It was myself and 7 friends, and then we had my dearly departed buddy Eric Peterson, who was remote gaming with us, and he was in Utah. And for ambiance, because we were playing G2 Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant, he put his mic near his window, which he then opened, and we could hear howling winds. And so he starts taking pictures. He had snowdrifts up to the 2nd story of his house. And here in Florida, this was like May or June, KYLE. I'm not kidding you. Here in Florida, it was like 100 degrees. It's completely nuts. I'm
reminded of, remember that cartoon strip, Knights of the Dinner Table?
I do, yes.
About the gamers. And there was one where one day this little webcam shows up at the game table, and the guys are going, "What's this?" And they go, "Oh, remember Bob or whatever? You know, he moved to Alaska, and he's in some tiny town somewhere. He's got nobody to game with, and his internet connection won't allow him to, you know." So they just had a little webcam that just sat there the whole time. And in the first session, they tried to make him pay for pizza, and they go, "No, that's the rule. Everyone who participates in the game helps pay for pizza." And he's like, "Okay, in that case, I want extra anchovies." And they even took him. They even took him to a game convention. They were driving along and they're arguing with each other in the car. And his little webcam sitting there on the dashboard, and he's going, "Guys, truck!"
I have a recollection that they got like I don't know if this was big down there, Kyle, if you paid attention to it. Marvel Hero Clicks, or it's like the miniature game, and you turn the dial on the bottom of the miniature to show their status. Well, at the time they were working with WizKids, and they went all in. They had some pretty nifty ones, but they had Galactus. And the like, most of the miniatures were like 32 millimeters tall, but the Galactus was literally 2 feet tall. If you put that on the table. So in the strip, they bought the Galactus and lopped its head off and stuck his webcam on top of it. So there's Galactus in his hands on hips to a certain dominance pose, with a Connectix golf ball webcam up on top of it. Very, very fun stuff. Yes, that was good times. Good times. So it's good to see you back again, man. Now I know, of course, you and I we communicate pretty darn regularly, but it is nice to have you here. So
if Fred wants to bench press 300 pounds, is that rare? Yes, Alan. It's a few years of dedicated hard work where you live in the gym. For reference, I've never had anyone I train bench press 300 pounds, though I've had a number of people bench press, deadlift or deadlift or squat 400 or 500 pounds, but that upper body stuff is just so slow to come up, and you basically just have to live in the gym.
Yeah,
every meal outside has to be, calibrated to get the weight up in that. So yes, it is rare. It's rare among general gym goers. It is not rare among competitors. It's kind of like asking about a 4-minute mile time or whatever. That's very rare among recreational runners, but it's kind of what you need if you want to be a competitor.
Yes, it's the wood grain OD&D set of bodybuilding, I guess.
Pretty much. There's there'll be a few people who've done it, like the wood grain thing, and there'll be that greedy guy who's got 18 in his collection. It's relatively unusual. But you always ask for any strength training or any endurance or anything else in life, you ask, okay, maybe you can do that, but what for? What in particular do you want to bench 300 pounds for? It's sort of like saying, you may as well say, I want a 400-page RPG book. Okay, what? So you always ask, how strong do you need to be? What is the task that you are applying your strength to? For everyday life, you certainly don't need to bench 300 pounds. For sports, you're an NFL linebacker. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And so on. You always just got to think, what is the task? And it's the same with RPG systems. Like, how many pages should my RPG book be? I think role-playing game writing, it should be like a woman's skirt. It should be long enough to cover the basics, but short enough to be interesting. So you always just got to think, what's the purpose? What am I doing this for? And that brings us back to game design and role-playing games.
That brings us back to game design and role-playing games, and that is that is where you, my friend, have been kind of busy these last few weeks, dropping some tidbits here and again. I tell you what, I'm going to hand you the talking stick again, Kyle, and I'm going to let you take us.
I'm kind of embarrassed to bring it up with you guys because it's by my standards anyway. It's a little bit thespy.
Don't worry, Kyle. We won't tell on you.
Let's see.
And while you're pulling that up, I'll relate. Back years ago when Seinfeld used to do like really good stand-up, I caught a show with him, and he was talking about weightlifting. I think it was Seinfeld. Guys, it's been 35 years. But I caught a show with him, and he was saying, so I went to a gym, and trying to build up some muscle, trying to work out a little bit, and not so soft. And, I'm using the machines, and the guy who was showing me around is like, yeah, you want to try the weights? And I was, yeah, let's go check it out. There's a guy on the bench, and he pushes the weight up, and he goes, ah! And I thought to myself, the hell with that. Anything that you got to lift that makes you go, ah, you need to put that down. you put that right down. Don't lift something that's going to make you make that noise. That's hurting you. Anyway.
All right, so here we go. This is the Vespi little thing. Yes, it's AI art. If you don't like it, then put me in touch with an artist who'll actually reply to their emails. Too many. This is what I found. Like earlier this year, I was trying to get a personal trainer, and I had to contact about a dozen or something just to get 2 to reply to me. It's like there's so many people out there. It's like all the tradesmen and that. Like what do you have against money? You provide a service. I want to give you money for it.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I guess I'll get back to you one day. Like, I don't understand it. Anyway, so in the meantime, AI art. So yes, but right now the idea for this basically came out of a thought experiment. How much can I get out of a single D6? How much of a game can I get out of a single D6? Originally, with my idea with conflict was that it was going to be just a single D6, but I found that to get the results I wanted, with the sort of frequencies of outcome that I wanted, we'd end up having to do multiple dice rolls anyway. So rather than having you roll a D6, then a D6, and then a D6, it seems simpler just roll 2 D6. And that. Mm-hmm. To get the particular kind of tactical and everything feel that I wanted out of conflict, I had to be at least 2 D6. So that's what I went with. But I thought, okay, rather than having a particular outcome in mind and then shaping the dice mechanics for it, I'll just start with a D6 and then see what kind of game comes out of that. And it turns out not to be too far from what we've already had. So what happens when the convoy stalls, when food runs out, when someone panics under fire? Yes, but is a tactical role-playing system built for grounded missions and real consequence. One resolution chart handles everything: combat, persuasion, scavenging, survival. No hit points, no initiative ladder, no narrative cheats. Every move matters. Every failure leaves a mark. Run missions, plan downtime, track gear. You don't level up, you adapt. Written for practical table use. Built to survive contact. That's the theory anyway. Anyway, it all hinges on this chart. Some people will be familiar with this concept. It floats around in RPG articles from time to time. Basically, like most role-playing game systems are going to have as a minimum resolution of, well, do you say yes or no? Does this work? Yes or no? If you say yes all the time, then your kids playing pretend, which is good, which is great, but it's not really a game in the sense that it has an uncertain outcome. So you want at least yes or no. Those are the 2 basic results. Some systems will then add a yes and or no and result of critical success or critical failure. That helps to keep things a bit more interesting. Like sometimes you fail dismally. Sometimes you succeed really well. And that kind of livens up the game table a bit. But there's a 3rd and 4th, or a 5th and a 6th possible result, which is yes, but, and no, but. It works, but, and then, okay, you fail, but, so you get these kind of complications. The but is the complication. The and is an additional thing that makes it even better or even worse, and the but is a complication. Now, if you're really Thespy, you can just sit there with the dice and just roll a d6 every time and then 1 and 6 will be dismal, and 1 or 6 will be awesome, and so on. But if you want to be able to influence the outcome, that's where skills, some combination of skills, equipment, and circumstances come in. So what I've done in this system is to make skills binary. It's got the same skill list as Conflict and a lot of other games that I've written, 36 different skills. Some of them are Hydra skills like craft and so on. There's multiple possible ones available, but most are just general skills. Skill list number is always a tricky thing in role-playing game systems. If you have fewer than, what I found in playtesting over the years, if you have fewer than probably about 30, it starts to be a character class system, because the skills are so broad that you cover everything. You have combat skill. Okay, he's a fighter character class. You have magic skill. Okay, he's a wizard. So a short enough skill list is effectively a character class list. Then, on the other hand, if you have more than 100 or so skills, you get into this weird thing where players end up saying, what do you mean I can't use a short sword? I've got long sword skill. Aren't they about the same? And you get, and that's arguable, but then you get into stupid arguments. The game table becomes arguing about, oh, well, no, you can't use it at all, or you can use it at -1. What, -1? But, well, it just gets tedious. We don't want the game table to devolve into arguments about rules. If we wanted that, we could play Advanced Squad Leader.
Yeah,
so
very, very true. Yes.
Somewhere between 30 and 100, I've found, is kind of the sweet spot for skill lists. The other aspect is, if you have a long skill list, that tends to make character generation longer. Definitely, if you get to choose all the skills, it makes things longer. But even if you have to roll them, because if you're having to roll for 100 individual skills, it's going to take you a long time. So a shorter skill list, to my mind, is preferred, because whenever I run games, I'm interested in accessibility. It's the same as my philosophy with the gym. Okay. I have people they come along for a free initial session, and I'll teach them to squat, press, and deadlift, ask them about their, previous injury and training history and whatever. Want them to be able to just come along. And we've got a small group here of, we have about 6 people at a time, and they come along, and I'll introduce people to each other. New person, Anne, this is Bon. She's a full-time worker and mother of preschoolers as well. So you're trying to bring them in. So between the training approach we have and the social aspect, like Bon brings cake every Sunday, it makes it accessible. People come in and they feel comfortable. They may or may not want to stay ongoing, but they're going to feel comfortable. At least this is a place I can visit again, even if I don't come here 3 times a week and squat, press, and deadlift and add 5 pounds to the bar every time. I can at least visit. I feel comfortable. And I want people to feel the same thing about role-playing games. So I've always liked an open game table where we could be sitting in the magic card shop at a table, and somebody walks past and they see the Dungeon Master's screen from AD&D and so on, and they go, "Oh, this is the original one." Yeah, well, not quite, but yeah. And I want them to be able to sit down and just start playing within 5 to 15 minutes, just to go for it. You can do that in things like D&D or the older editions. You can't really do that in GURPS or Rollmaster or something, where character generation is a whole session. So in thinking of the skills, I will err on the side of the lower end. Between that 30 and 100, I'll err on the side of the lower end, because it makes character generation quicker, and it's more intuitively obvious to people. If you just have melee skill, first, most people don't know the word melee, then you introduce them to Gygaxian prose and they start to get it. But if you just have melee skill, there's not really any doubt. There's sword, dagger, mace, club, chair leg, whatever. It's all the same skill, and they get it. Whereas if you have short sword, but short sword can substitute for club in some circumstances, blah, blah, blah. People get all confused. You want them to be able to sit down, make your character, and start playing. within 15 minutes. And as long as they brought snacks anyway.
Right.
So I will be in that 30 to 100 range. I will err on the side of lower. So I've got 36 skills, though, as I said, some of them are Hydra skills like craft and technician and things like that, which go into many, because you start to get a bit too cinematic if the guy can do carpentry and mechanic, is an auto mechanic, and he can fly a plane and blah, 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 which is cool, but that's not what we're going for. We're going for a bit more grounded. So what I've put in is just, you've got the skills, but skills are binary. You either have them or you don't. So it's either at 0 or it's at +1. There are some things where, maybe the referee will rule that you can't do it at all. Like, you're a Middle Ages knight. No, you can't fly an aircraft. But on the other hand, you could be a modern commercial pilot. No, you can't just jump on a horse and ride it. You'll fall off. So they might make those rulings. But aside from that, everyone's got a 0 level default. But if they've got the skill, they've got +1. So +1 represents a professional skill, something that you spent a couple of years doing a course, a couple of years in the military, a couple of years doing an apprenticeship and so on, and you've got some theory and some practical experience. So you're not a master of the trade, but you could make a living from it. If you could make a living from it, you have that skill. If you could not make a living from it, you do not have that skill. So for example, I've got the skill of speech. I know how to express myself. I've demonstrated by means of this and my writing and so on that I am able to make a living from it. So I can confidently say I have the skill of speech. I cannot say I have the skill of psychology, understanding people's emotional troubles and that. You have a little bit overlap from speech and so on, but I'm not going to go, oh, this guy is upset because when he was a child, somebody tore the head off his teddy bear, whatever. I'm not going to suss out in that much detail. And that's just a +1. Now, +1 doesn't seem like much, but if you look at the chart, you'll notice as soon as you've got +1, that excludes the possibility of getting the no and result. You can no longer have critical failures.
Powerful.
And the yes and result happens 2 times out of 6 now. Instead of having 1 time out of 6 have a critical success, 2 times out of 6 you have a critical success. The further thing I've had is there's equipment which can be improvised. That's -1. Basic equipment, that's 0. And then there's equipment of quality, +1. That gives you enough, so they can give you another +1. But you can only use the equipment of quality if you have the skill. So for example, me, physician skill, I'm not a qualified medical physician or anything like that. Now, I've done a lot of first aid incidents in my life, CPR multiple times and that. Okay, yeah, we can say I've got the default of 0, but I couldn't make a living from it. I can't jump in the back of an ambulance and put on a uniform and expect to know what the hell I'm doing. Now, the reason I don't get the equipment bonus is I wouldn't know what the hell to do with it, right? Somebody tears open their leg and starts bleeding. I know what to do. I'm better off with a basic first aid kit than I am with a tea towel. But if you stick me in a trauma ward and they go, oh, shouldn't we be injecting them with, I don't know, what do I do with it? Just give me the bandage, dude. I don't know what to do with all that junk. So the professional not only gets their +1, they can also get the benefit of good equipment. And so that becomes +2. And then you look at the possible results here. It not only takes a critical failure out, but a basic failure. The worst they can get is no but, which means, okay, it failed, but, so for example, you're trying to stabilize somebody's wound, you've slowed it down, but he needs to be looked at again really soon. That's a no but result. And then the yes and result, because you've got the +2, it now becomes 3 times out of 6. Half the time you get a critical success because you're the professional with the good equipment. The other things that can add to it is assistance, having somebody else help you who just does, they're your second, they just do as told. So then that can become a +3 or whatever. And circumstances. So some circumstances are better than others. So if you were trying to treat a wound while you're in the rain under fire, that's not a good circumstance. You might have a -1 there. You're a little bit distracted by trying not to get shot at the same time as you're treating somebody else's wound. On the other hand, if you are working in a trauma ward where everyone's got a team, they're part of a team, and they've all got an assigned role. This person does the check boxes, this person pumps the mask or whatever, this person gets the bandages, blah, blah, blah. You get a bonus from that. So success becomes almost certain. The worst you can get is like a yes, but or whatever. Like it works, but there's going to be a scar afterwards or whatever. So you can get a fair bit from that single chart when you're talking about skill resolutions. Is this making sense to guys?
So far it is. Now I'll tell you, Kyle, are you familiar at all with DreamPod 9's silhouette system?
No.
Okay. It uses kind of a similar system to what you and I have discussed, and kind of where we're trending here, where 0 is median. Like having an ability of 0 in something does not mean you're a failure. It is literally just the mean. The guy with a +1 is like upper echelon professional. The guy with +2 is a near legend, and the guy with +3 only exists in entertainment videos, you know. But I'm getting a similar vibe, and I'm not saying, well, you just recreated silhouette, Kyle. So that's
look, I've the same as the training world. I've never claimed that anything I do is new and original, because like the first professional gym, I think, was the 1850s in France. It's impossible that in 175 years we have like come up with entirely new things. We're just rehashing old stuff. And the same for role-playing game concepts. I don't claim to have come up with any new ones. Just claim to sort of repackage them in a way that makes sense in a particular way for a particular purpose. That's all. But yeah, so that's your basic, the master result chart. Everything is determined there. Now, this is an important thing. This is my kind of gaming philosophy. My view, if you're talking about skill systems, class systems are a bit different, but if you're talking about skill systems, my view is that most people can do most things given enough time and effort, right? It's like the classic thing of like, for example, changing a tire, okay? Anyone can change a tire, but the professional, you know, you've got the pit crew in the Formula One who change a tire in 3.5 seconds, or whatever it is, right? They're the professionals.
Yeah.
But it'll take me a lot longer than 3.5 seconds to do that.
Yeah.
And maybe if it's raining when the tire blows and I'm on a dark highway somewhere, I'm just going to call the RACV, what do you call, Auto Club or whatever. Just call them. That guy can stand out.
To be fair, pit crew guys, looking at your system, pit crew guys are rocking a minimum of +2, you know, because you talk about changing a tire. I know F1 cars do this, and there's actually been a trend in stock cars to do this now, where the jack is built into the car. It is literally a piston that they plug a high pressure hose on the car at that point.
Definitely +1 for equipment, and they'd have +1 for their skill, and then they would have +1 for, you know, work circumstances, working in a team, blah blah blah.
Yeah, they get tons of them, but like on stock car and on F1, there's no lug nuts. There is a central hub nut. It's zip, and the spare tires already have it on. It's like already glued in place with a mild glue, and when they put the tire on, it's zip, and it's, you know, it's on. So there's your pluses of your system in action right there.
So my view is, and it's the same, like we've all had the handyman tasks that we're not really qualified for, but we take enough time doing it, and we have a lot of swearing, and we break a few things, and then we eventually do it. Whereas the professional comes and does it in 30 seconds and and does it well as well. So having the skill is doesn't mean it's not a matter of whether or not you can do it. It's how well and how quickly can you do it.
Okay.
That's always been and that's why, like, even when I ran GURPS, the games sessions would go much more quickly than when others did, because it's a classic thing. Like if a guy says, I want my character to run down I'm chasing down a boat that's escaping. I want him to run down the pier and then do a flying jump into the boat as it's escaping, and then leap across the boat and grab the other guy. And you could just resolve that as one roll, or you can say, I want you to roll for running down the street, then running down the pier, then roll for your jump, then roll to catch on the other side, and so on. And if you make them roll enough times, they'll eventually fail, the poor bastards. And that gets depressing. So my view is you only roll when the outcome is uncertain,
Mm-hmm.
and when the outcome is meaningful. When it's about doing things well and quickly. If it's not important whether you do it well or whether you do it quickly, there is no need to roll. And if doing it badly or doing it slowly has no consequences for your character's life, there's no need to make a roll. So the example I gave, Hanley cooks noodles. This is routine and unimportant. No roll is needed. Later on, he wants to impress Desiree with a delicate creme brulee. The outcome is both uncertain and meaningful. So he rolls.
Kyle, I don't want to intrude or imply anything, but that sounds like a terribly personal example that you've created there. Was that just whole cloth, or is there a backstory?
There's always a backstory.
There's always a backstory. We
As
won't
Marco
pry,
said,
but
this story also shall be told.
Destined to wear the noodle bowl of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow.
Pretty much, yeah. All right. Okay, so that's the basic skill resolution thing. Now, when you make a character, so the skills, there's 36 skills, there's 12 skills in each category of brawn, brains, and soul.
Okay.
You roll for one of the 12 skills in each of brawn, you roll for one of the 12 skills in each of brains, and you roll for one of the 12 skills in each of the soul skills. Then you add some extra skills that you choose. And how many you get to choose depends on how many players there are in the group. If you're on your own, you get 3 extra skills. You're going to need them because you're on your own. If you're in a pair, a dynamic duo, you get 2 extra skills. And if you're in a team of 3+ players, you get 1 extra skill.
Okay.
So it becomes 6, 5, 4, the total number of skills that you get. Now, this is the Thespy bit. You roll 1d6 for your nature. We'll get to the nature in a bit. And then you assign gear. If you have the skill, you've got the gear for it, right? If you're a mechanic, you've got a toolkit. If you're a firearms guy, you've got some sort of firearm and so on. Being a professional means you've got the tools for the profession. Again, skill represents a professional level of expertise. You could make a living doing this thing. People who make a living doing a thing have the tools for it. Or people who potentially could make a living doing the thing have the tools for it. Like, I'm sure that Bill, I do not have tools to pull apart this computer, which I was tempted to do when it bricked a week or so back. I do not have the tools to pull it apart and solder broken things or whatever. I am sure Bill does, right? Because he has had the profession of repairing this stuff and improving it and so on. I have not, and I'm definitely not qualified for that either. So if you have the skill, you have the gear for it, and you can trade 2 of the basic bits of gear for 1 good quality bit of gear. +1.
I like that. I like the idea of trading up. Can you trade down?
Well, you don't need to, because -1 is improvised gear.
Okay. So like if
you don't need to, so like if I've got the melee skill, I can get a basic fighting knife, you know, the Marine K-bar or something like that. Or I can get the quality one, the Gladius +1, you know. But improvised, I'm going to use this screwdriver. That's going to be my melee weapon. That's -1, right? You will stab somebody with it, but it's not going to be as useful as a Marine K-bar would be, let alone your, you know, quality sharp Gladius. But you can use this, and it's improvised. The improvised ones are good because they're cheap or even free. You can find them anywhere. You know, you go into somebody's garage or their bottom kitchen drawer, you're going to find a screwdriver or the little scraper. What else? Here's my spanner. Improvised melee weapon.
There you go.
All right. That's an improvised one. They're everywhere. So you could trade down, like if you really want to carry around a screwdriver and a Stanley knife instead of having a Marine K-bar, you can.
Well, okay, so
Why would you bother? You can just find them anywhere.
There's a little bit of backstory here, and this goes into flavor and just good visual storytelling that you can't really extract. There's a film by David Cronenberg that actually doesn't involve body horror and weird sexuality called Eastern Promises, and it's about Russian mobsters, and it's got Viggo Mortensen in it, and he and his cohorts carry around these knives, and they're linoleum knives. And a lot of people who'd never seen linoleum knives before thought these were some weird, like mob only knives that were only used in Eastern Europe and that sort of thing. And so people started asking him about these knives, like, oh, where can I get? Oh, I saw Eastern Promises, and the bad guys had these creepy looking hooked knives. Is that like a Russian thing? And he's like, no, they're tile knives. I saw a guy putting down linoleum and he had them with them. And I thought that would be a perfect weapon for a hitman to carry, because if you get shaken down by the cops, you can just say, look, this is a tile knife. What can I cut with this? I can cut tile with it. I'm a tile guy. I put down linoleum. That's why I've got this in my pocket. So that just struck me interesting in the context of, when you would want to grab an improvised weapon. Is it perfect for melee? No. Will it cut a bitch? Absolutely.
Yeah, and it might be all that the character has available at that moment. Alan asks, why are skill systems needed for modern RPGs? You mean RPGs made in the modern times, or RPGs set in a modern setting? Why are skill systems needed? Well, I mean, technically you don't need any system. As I said, you can just narrate it. You can just sit there playing a game of Let's Pretend and tell stories back and forth and stuff. That's more role-playing and less game. A game is something where there's some mixture of choices and chance. Most people, when it comes to role-playing, like there to be a bit of chance, a bit of an uncertain outcome from time to time. Because it's like, okay, I hit him, all right, he falls down. I hit the next guy, he falls down. I hit the next guy, he falls down. Like, that wasn't terribly exciting, but I hit him. Well, no, you don't. He just dodges out of the way, and he does a counterpunch on you. Boom, right in the guts. Oof. Okay. Well, I kick him in the shins. That starts to become a bit more evocative and interesting if the outcome is uncertain. So you need some resolution of some way to resolve uncertain outcomes, and then you start asking, well, what should influence the uncertainty? What makes something more or less likely to happen? As I said, if you wanted to, you could just use that master result chart and there, or you could just flip a coin whether or not things work. Most players will be more interested in a character that is good at some things and bad at some things. So that the things they're bad at, they're more likely to fail at. The things that they're good at, they're more likely to succeed at. How do we determine what things they are good or bad at? We have a skill system. We could just have attributes of brawn, brains, and soul, or something like that. But most people like a little bit more detail than this is a big, brawny, tough guy, or this is a smart guy, or whatever. You know, that's probably good enough for cinematic games. You know, you're playing Tony Stark, making his suit in a cave somewhere. Okay, he's put all his points in brains. Great. And the suit's going to make up for his lack of brawn. Okay, great. But most people like a bit more detail than that, so we get skill systems. I hope that answers the question. All right. So example, Hanley joins a 3-person team, so he'll just get 1 extra skill. Sorry. For brawns, he rolls strength. For brains, he rolls observation, and for soul, he rolls speech, and then he chooses firearms. His nature is patient. He trades gear to upgrade to a +1 scope rifle and a +1 stimulant. Helps with his strength. Is he polite, rude, open-minded, closed, taciturn, garrulous, sour, foul-mouthed? This will be decided in play. This is key. Goes back to AD&D. Choose a name and appearance. Background, details, and personality beyond the nature emerge during play. No 10-page backstories, guys. And then there's something about like non-player characters and stuff. So minor NPCs, they just get 1 random skill and no nature. Major NPCs just have 1 skill per category and a rolled nature. And that's not because, you know, PCs are meant to dominate over everyone. It's just so the DM doesn't have 4 million things to take care of. If everyone's a fully developed character, it gets a bit overwhelming for the DM. All right, so the nature. This is the Thespy bit. These are 6 of the 7 classical virtues and vices. We've got lust and chastity, gluttony and temperance, and so on. So what you do is you roll a d6 to see which of the pairing, and then you choose between them. Okay, so if you've got 1, you choose between lust and chastity. Now, this can very easily be a caricature. It can be interesting to read about it. Lust doesn't necessarily have to be the rooty-nooty stuff. It could be bloodlust, a lust for life. It's just a person just charges into things, and they're well, not charges into things, but they're very sort of sensual. Gluttony need not be for food. You can be like a person who drinks a lot, person who uses a lot of drugs, and so on.
You could be like me and be a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, there's that too. Well, then there's like Bill. I think Bill's got humility, pride and humility. And he chose humility.
I've got pride and humility. Well, that's...
Well, you have to choose between pride and humility.
Oh, okay.
I think Bill's got humility because he downplays himself a bit unnecessarily and his role in the world. He's not as proud as he should be. I mean, you know, he runs a successful channel, so he should be proud. But he's not.
Where? I need to log into it at some point, I guess.
So he downplays it a bit, so I would give him the trait humility. Anyway, Hanley rolls a 5. You get choose between wrath and selects patience. He can wait all night in the rain, but struggles with surprise visitors. And his sidekick character, Desiree, she also rolls 5, but she chooses wrath. She vents quickly and impulsively. Okay, then there's allies. Calculate how many soul skills you've got. It'll be 1 to 3 most likely. And you can have a number of allies. They're off screen until called. They can be human or trained animals. So you can have dog meet the dog following you around. And you may declare this in the middle of the game by going, I know a guy. I know a guy who can help us with that. Okay. Now, here's something that I actually did think was innovative that was relatively new. I came up with encumbrance. Okay, so this part isn't new. Each item of non-trivial side, like trivial things like pens and lockets and things like that, you don't worry about. I mean, no, you can't carry 100,000 biros, but we don't worry about them otherwise. But
yeah, you got to watch out for the 100,000 pin exploit game masters.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. We say they occupy 1 slot. Okay, now rather than encumbrance reducing your skills, what it does is caps out outcomes. So if you're carrying a rifle, you can't get yes and results on things like athletics and athletic and stealth and things like that. Right? It's really hard to do a spinning backflip if you're carrying a rifle at the same time.
Yes.
Now, it doesn't make you less likely to be able to do a spinning backflip, but it caps out the top result. So that's how encumbrance is handled. Each of those slots caps out a result. So you can, if you were to carry 3 rifles, the best you could do is no but. Doesn't matter how good an athletic person, a gymnast you are, you can't do a triple spinning backflip, if that's even a thing, I don't know. But you can't do it if you're carrying 3 rifles. Now, to mitigate this, you've got containers, and you can have a day pack, which has got 4 internal slots, a backpack with 6 internal slots, and a vest, which itself takes up 1 slot, but it has 4 internal slots. So you've got your pistol and 3 magazines. You carry them. That's 2 encumbrance. I just count 3 magazines as 1 encumbrance. So that's 2 encumbrance. But you now get a vest, and you stick the pistol and the holster on your vest, and you stick the magazines in another patch. Okay, now that's just 1 encumbrance because you're just wearing the vest. Does that make sense? So you just
makes sense to me.
Yeah. And in the case of the vest, you can slot in some Kevlar armor, or you can put in 2 slots with plate armor. Kevlar armor will reduce the wounding of handguns and less, and plate armor of rifles and less.
Okay, that tracks.
So, yeah, so that's how it works as an encumbrance. Okay, so this is your skill list here, with all the sorts of things you'd expect. So again, it's something, if you have the skill, it's something you can make a living from. Things with asterisks there, they're things with their specialist skills. They require training to use effectively. Normally, you cannot do them at default. So like hazmat is things like scuba and spacesuits and things like that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And they usually require a specialty. So, for example, your classic craft skill, you could be a good carpenter. It doesn't mean you know anything about electrician or something, whatever, like a different thing. But anyway, that technician is fixing stuff and crafting is making stuff. So you can be a good carpenter, but it doesn't mean you know anything about weaving. Right. So you have to choose a specialty, and the same would be true of hazmat. So the scuba guy is not necessarily going to be any use in a spacesuit. It's a particular skill. What are specialist skills will, of course, vary by campaign. If it's, as I said before, if it's medieval Germany, then aircraft is definitely a specialist skill. And physician and so on will be specialist skills. In the modern day, then you're going to have things like hazmat and so on. Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I was just going to. Go.
I've lost your volume then, man.
Oh, no. We kept stepping on each other, and it was my fault. But let me ask you, and this is kind of an overall question about the skills. I noticed, for example, landcraft is not a specialist skill. Let's see.
It's driving all vehicles, riding animals.
Okay, 99% of us are never going to have to stop on a dime and pull a bootlegger reverse to evade high-speed pursuit. So, in the case of a skill not had, like, I'm guessing the answer is no, but this does not lean heavily on like I'm going to drive across town. Okay, give me a landcraft roll.
No, yeah, again, you roll when the outcome is uncertain or meaningful.
Right, and I thought that was the case. I just
Yeah.
wanted to be that extra clarity. Yeah,
Yeah.
that goes back to you know what I've said about AD&D. Of course you can climb a tree. Of course you can make a snare for a rabbit.
That's right. That's right.
Of course you can swim ably across a relatively calm river or pond without drowning.
But if you want to climb a tree in a storm while orcs are firing arrows at you, maybe then you do need to roll.
Right, exactly.
You roll when the outcome is meaningful. Or, as I said, anyone can do just about anything given time and effort. The question is, do you do it well and or quickly? So you roll when you want to know if you've done it well or quickly.
Okay.
If you don't need, if it doesn't need to be done well, if it doesn't need to be done quickly, you can do it. So again, you can climb a tree. It might take you a while. You might smash your knee and swear a lot. You might break a branch or two, but yes, you can climb a tree. And we don't worry about all those little details. He climbs a tree. We wait until he's climbed the tree. Now, if you're climbing a tree in a rainstorm while orcs are firing arrows at you, okay, now you roll, because doing it well and quickly is really important. That's why we always roll in combat, because when somebody is trying to kill you, it is important to do things well and quickly.
All right. RPG Grandma says people in her area fail their daily drive skill check regularly. I think you're out on the left coast, though, aren't you, RPG? That I would say that would be an asterisk skill if you live in the People's Republic of California or in Central Florida. Okay, lest it seem that I'm throwing too much shade.
Yeah, when the outcome is meaningful. So, you know, if Kyle's life was a role-playing game, then Kyle driving his kid to school in the morning would not be a role. If Kyle chose to, okay, this vehicle is technically capable of going at 160 kilometers an hour. Therefore, I should be able to drive to the school in 3 minutes. Let's try that in morning traffic. Okay, make a roll, says the Godmaster. Make a roll. And then I'm rolling at my default skill of +0, and this is where we hope that auto safety features on my vehicle kick in. So,
including the one in your gray matter that says this is a bad idea, don't do it.
Exactly. Or if you know, somebody lends me their $250,000 Lamborghini. Now it is really, really important. I'm not going to try to do it quickly, because I want to do it well. Because if I get a single scratch on that damn thing. So yeah, that is my general game mastering philosophy, which I put into the system.
I like it.
Okay, and there's just a note there about quality gear only applies if the character has skill. The first aider does not get more out of a trauma ward than they would out of a first aid kit, though a doctor will. Improvised always applies. So it doesn't matter if you're a professional doctor or first aider or whatever, you still get the -1 if you're just using a tea towel to stop a wound. But the doctor will do a better job with the tea towel than I would, because he's got the +1. So he'll be net +0, whereas I'm net -1. So he'll still be able to get a yes and result.
Right on.
Okay, then we get actions. There's only 4 things you can do in turn. There's move, handle, orient, attack. Moving is shifting your range or posture. Handle is retrieving gear or changing magazines or something. Orient, observe or refocus, and attack is obvious enough. Okay, the ranges, I'm not worrying about meters and stuff like that here. Okay, we just got range of contact, you're wrestling each other. Melee, short, medium, long, and very long. When you do movement, you move from very long to long, from long to medium, and so on. Or the other way again. That's it. We keep it abstract. And then the postures are just prone, crouch, and standing. You can go straight from standing to crouch or prone, you can drop to the ground. If you're crouching, you can stand up or you can lie down. If you're prone, you have to go to crouch first or standing, unless you do an athletics check. And then you can go straight from prone to standing. Don't get a no and result or you fall over again. So, all right, now, orient. This is an important one. This I sort of took from conflict to some degree. Normally in combat, people will focus on whoever or whatever is immediately in front of them. Combatants do not have a bird's eye view of the battlefield, particularly when the enemy is moving from cover to cover. Therefore, it is wise to sometimes use an orient action. Stop, look around, do an observation check to see where everyone is.
Okay.
Right. So if you're in a section-on-section contact and there's 6 to 10 guys there, you do not know where each of those, say, 8 guys are. Because you might be busy shooting at one and he goes down or he hides behind a concrete block or something. And you go, oh, is there anyone else around? You have to stop and look. And then you realize this guy's coming right next to you and you go, oh, shit. So, yeah, you have to orient. The rules are trying to encourage tactics. I've got a section on tactics at the end. Anyway, all right, wounding. You've got the wound results chart. It's the same thing, except there's a 7th result put at the top. The wound categories are just your triage categories. Green, minor wound. Yep, go away, come back tomorrow. Yellow, delayed wound. Okay, it's serious. We have to deal with it within a few hours. Red, incapacitating. We have to deal with it within an hour, or you might degrade. And then black, fatal. Yeah, he's gone. Injury is incompatible with life or actually dead or whatever. This is the person that you're doing CPR on and so on. This is the triage categories that they use for a mass casualty situation. People who can be people who will live no matter what you do, people who will die no matter what you do, and then in between, people for whom the help will make a difference. Of course, everyone thinks that their wounds are urgent, but there it is.
Right.
So you roll, you get your result. Any yes result will be some sort of wound. There's also another thing, in the same way that encumbrance maxes out your possible results, the type of weapon you use maxes out your possible results. If you use a body weapon, if you're just punching somebody, the most you can get is green under normal circumstances. The most you can get is green. If you use a blunt weapon, chair leg or something, the most you can get is a yellow result, delayed wound. If you use a blade, it's incapacitating. And if you use a firearm, there's no maximum. The person can die instantly. So you cannot kill someone instantly with one punch. Now, someone will say, oh, but it happened this one time. Yes, but we look at the resolution here of the system. It's 1 in 6. So the statistics in hospital are that something like, I think it's about 10 or 12% of people who come in with firearms injuries do die. Mm-hmm. However, there'll be another few percent who died on the scene and never made it to hospital. So we can say overall that about 1 in 6 people in the modern world who suffer a firearms wound will unfortunately die from it. Some of those will be red wounds that degrade to black. Some will be instantly fatal wounds, black wounds. But yeah, about 1 in 6 seems a reasonable guesstimate. Then there's blade weapons. That'll be 1 in 6 results. Blade weapons is about 5 or 6%. Who unfortunately die from their injuries in hospital. So again, it seems reasonable to say, okay, we'll call that a red result. So if they're not treated, then they're in big trouble. Blunt and body wounds, it's very small. It's well under 1%. So it's very unusual to be killed by that. And usually when someone's killed by body, they've been choked out. So that's a different circumstance. So once somebody is knocked down, if you really want to, you can murder the poor guy. All right, if he's on the ground and smack his head into the ground or something like that. If you really want to, you can do that. But if we're talking about the back and forth of combat, where you're having to punch on or exchanging fire or whatever, those are the maximum results that you can get. Does that seem reasonable and make sense?
That seems reasonable and makes sense. And we're kind of coming to a good point here that John Strain asked this a few minutes ago. And I think we kind of clear it up here. John, let us know if this is answering your question, and that's how to get yes, but. And I wasn't 100% sure of the context. RPG Grandma opined something that would be something like, you stabbed the guy, but the security system cameras that you just saw noticed. So would that be something like that, Kyle?
Yeah. Well, so this is actual wounding mechanics. So yes.
Okay. I think it was a little earlier he was asking.
Yeah, because ultimately in combat, you were trying to make the other guy fall down and stop bothering you. You may or may not want him dead, but you want him to stop bothering you and to stop him as a threat to you. So if you think about that, if he has a red wound, an incapacitating wound, yes, and not only has he stopped bothering you, we can go through it. Like black fatal, that's it, he's out. He's not going to bother anyone ever again. The yes and result is, yes, not only has he stopped bothering you, but he's not going to bother anyone else for a while because he's incapacitated. That's a significant wound. The yellow, the delayed one result is, yes, he's not going to bother you, right? Because it's a severe enough wound that he's probably going to fall down. And then the green one is, yes, but, okay, look, he's wounded, but he may still keep coming. You know, like you just sprained his wrist or something. He may still keep coming at you.
Okay.
There's a no but result as well, that where you didn't actually injure him, but he drops prone to avoid you. He's ducking under fire, or you punched him and he stumbled back and he fell over. He wasn't actually injured by it, but he still fell over. He's now dropped prone. And then just a simple no is a miss, and the no and result is a miss and a complication. If you're using firearms, you run out of ammo. So like conflict, you don't count ammo. If you really want to, you can, but normally you don't count ammo. You just count reloads. If you never get a no and result, that just means that you're reloading as just part of your regular action. You don't need a dedicated action to do it. You're moving so smoothly, you don't. And you just think, if someone's got firearm skill, they'll have a +1. So in most circumstances, they will not be able to get a no and result. They just move smoothly through combat, reloading, changing magazines, picking up ammo that they found on the ground, and they don't have to take a dedicated action to reload. You've no doubt seen in movies or in guys practicing in kill houses and stuff, in urban training or something like that on YouTube. You no doubt have seen these guys that move really smoothly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to take an action to reload, and you find ammo from somewhere or other. Now, this can be a little bit cinematic, and you sort of go, well, he fired 21 times, but he's got 20 rounds in his magazine. How does that work? It all comes out in the wash, because there'll be other times when a guy had a full magazine and he gets a no and result. Okay, he blew through his whole magazine. It went up, and he didn't hit anything. You'll get that occasionally. So I just think it comes out even. And also in the play testing, if you look at the odds, it's probably not going to go long enough to run out of ammo anyway, unless you've only got one weapon with no reloads. It's just unlikely that the combat will go long enough. In a tactical engagement, the chances of running out of ammunition are not very great. It's the lengthier engagements, but
okay.
That's what you find really. Like your SWAT team doesn't run out of ammo, right? Because they're not dealing with 100 guys; they're dealing with half a dozen at most. And this is the scale of role-playing game systems. In most role-playing game systems, you're not going to be part of a company attack on a platoon fixed position. You're going to be like the 3 to 6 guys. You're more like special forces or a SWAT team or something.
Mm-hmm.
So ammunition isn't really the limiting factor or whatever. I mean, even just like D&D, how many of us have run out of arrows in the middle of a combat? Unless you spend 6 weeks down in a dungeon, it just doesn't happen. It's just not really a limiting factor. So yeah, that's how I handle it. And that's wound severity. And then there's a matter of stabilize. You've got to stabilize them within minutes for the black wounds, hours, days, and then how long it takes to recover. If somebody who's got a black wound, it takes them a year to recover. Incapacitating wound takes some months, then there's weeks, then there's days.
Okay.
Untreated wounds get worse. Kevlar armor reduces wounds. This is why you want to wear armor. So I mentioned a little bit later on, any yellow or black, so any yellow, red, or black result we assume is on the trunk or the head. Right, you're not going to get it's very rare to get a fatal wound on your arm. Technically, it's possible. The arm's torn off or something.
Sure.
Technically, it's possible, but it just doesn't tend to happen very much, except in things which are overall fatal in other ways.
I have heard of the rare case of people being shot with low caliber bullets in the lower leg and they die, but that's shock. And
like I said, we're interested in things that happen at least 1 in 6 times.
Right, exactly, and not God just decided that your number was up.
And then there's the other guy that got shot 17 times, but he kept fighting. So
right.
We're not really interested in that. We're interested in stuff that happens at least 1 in 6 times. So a red or yellow wound will always be on the trunk or the head. Otherwise, the wounding location for green ones is just random. Now, the significance of that is Kevlar armor reduces wounds by level from handguns and less, plate armor from rifles and less. This is life-saving because that black wound becomes a red one. So instead of dying instantly, you've now got an hour for them to treat you.
Mm-hmm.
That red wound becomes a yellow one. That thing where they had to treat you within the hour, they can now just treat you within the day. Much less likely to die horribly. The yellow wound becomes a green, becomes a minor one, can be left for a day or two. And the green wound becomes not a wound at all. So that's just on the trunk. The helmet armor is always plate. So body armor will save your life. Wounds are capped by weapon type, as I mentioned. Should a higher result be rolled, the result is downgraded. Exception, characters with strength have their body, blunt, and blade weapons 1 level higher. So if a strong guy punches you, it's more likely. So a regular guy punches you, maximum green wound. A strong person punches you, maximum yellow wound. Likewise with blades. A strong person with a blade might actually be a black wound if you're unlucky. The referee may adjudicate that some circumstances exceed this. For example, a downed person has his head smashed by a vengeful buffaloon with a golf club. This will eventually kill him, but it's just a blunt weapon. Yeah, she just keeps hitting. Grappling is a little bit different. So with grappling, if you get a black wound, it's represented as the person being choked out. They're grappled around their neck and they get a green wound on their head and they pass out. Red means they're fully pinned to the ground. Yellow is a random body part gets immobilized, twist the arm behind the back sort of thing. And green is a random body part grab just for that turn. So it hinders them. You grab their pistol hand, you grab that, it hinders them. They're trying to shoot you, but you grab their hand just for that turn. We've played this out, and it actually works fairly well as a series of grapples. So I had this character, Rook, and she went in and wrestled a guy. She was actually trying to just choke him out unconscious or sneak up to the guard or whatever. But she just managed to grab an arm, and she held onto the arm just for that turn. And then next she grabbed a leg. But because his arm was grabbed, he was -1 to all actions. So then he's trying to resist, and he wasn't able to. So then she was able to grab his leg, and so now he was another -1, and then she was able to pin him down on the ground, and then choke the poor guy out. So it became a series of things, so MMA style.
Right.
It worked surprisingly evocative. Anyone who's wounded has to do a stand-up check. Yes, even if it's a green wound, you might just go, ow, and fall over, or maybe it was in the leg, so you tripped over, whatever. You can get straight up again the next turn, but it takes actions. And in the meantime, you're prone.
Okay.
Combat is all simultaneous, by the way. So that's hit location, which I mentioned already. Hit location is primarily used for treating wounds after combat. So it's first it's used to determine, do you have body armor there? And does it reduce the wound? But during combat, hit location only matters for armor or narrative effects.
I was going to make a joke about this, but John Strain brings up, I think this, like, Kyle, my experience with grappling and melee, and first of all, obviously, I have not yet played the game, but that will hopefully change. I think this is endemic across role-playing game systems. Grappling, melee, holds, and breaks. I don't think it's difficult in some systems. I can't think of any that do it with any degree of either verisimilitude or with any degree of speed. Now, I can do that kind of melee in first edition AD&D. It just drags. It's not complicated to the point of being difficult to understand. It's complicated to the point of cramming 30 seconds of fun into about 6 minutes. So to recraft, to repurpose John's statement here as a question, when it came to your melee system, unarmed melee, when we say melee, obviously your game could be applied to two guys with swords as easily as two guys with rifles. But when it came to the unarmed combat section, I do like how you just kind of kept that in the flow. Like it doesn't fundamentally differ for the sake of being different. And I just had to comment on that when I saw John's.
It's just that the degree of wounding is the degree of hindrance, because normally a green wound gives you a -1 to your actions, a yellow wound -2, and a red -3. I mean, you might have passed out anyway, but if you haven't passed out, if you're still up and on your feet, you've just got that malus. So the grappling just gives you the same malus. It's just that it's not, you don't need first aid afterwards. You know what I mean? Like if somebody grapples your arm, it's as though you have sprained your wrist or your elbow or something. It's as though you have, in terms of being able to use it. It's just that once they let go, the wound disappears. You know, because in practical terms, what we care about is the character hindered, player character, NPC, whatever, are they hindered in what they want to do next? And does this hindrance last after the combat? That's all we care about. It's you know, it's just game mechanics.
Right.
So grappling is just a kind of wounding that is non-permanent.
And that brings up kind of a meta question then, if I can ask you this, Kyle. Did you find yourself, when you were working on this, fighting or having to resist or I guess that's kind of begging the question. Did you worry that you were being too reductive with this? I'm a guy. I love flavor in the game, but
I worry the worst. I worry the reverse. I go, oh, the game's up to 12 pages now. Maybe I should trim it back.
See, for me, like 12 pages is just where the Dungeon Master's Guide is starting to its countdown to launch. I mean, you know.
Well, see, the thing is, like my view is that, like your Dungeon Master's Guide of AD&D and stuff, I'm comfortable with that being long, because those guys were inventing the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
They had to say a lot and to explain this is how we do things. But I mean,
and
like you know, 50 years on, do we need a what is a role-playing game section in our game?
Exactly.
Everyone knows now that, like, we've got a common language now, so it doesn't have to all be spelled out. So if I were writing this in 1974, Yes, I would want it to be over 100 pages because I have to spell everything out. But you don't need to tell people what initiative is. There's none in this game, but you don't have to tell people what initiative is. You don't have to tell them what a hit point is. You don't have to tell them what dexterity is. You don't have to tell them what D6 means. They know.
You don't have to explain a bell curve probability to them.
No, you don't. People know these days because there are literally thousands of role-playing games. I mean, John Kim had his big list of role-playing games, and he got up to, I can't remember, something like 2,000 published ones, and then another 1 or 2,000 free ones that were out there. And then he gave up around 2008 or something. So just once everyone was able to make PDFs and chuck them on their website, he just got too many to keep track of.
That barrier for entry goes away, and it's Katie bar the door. I remember back in the I guess the mid 1990s, there was a list maintained. It was a list of 3D engines, that is first person environmental engines like Quake, Doom, that sort of thing. And I remember reading it on a monthly basis and seeing it was going up by 1 or 2, and the maintainer stopped sometime in like 2000 or 2001 because every game company was coming out with their own 3D engine. So it became entirely superfluous to keep track of all these different iterations. But to swerve us back on track here,
one thing is always to put as much as possible in as little as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like here in the gym, I don't want people working out 12 hours a week. I mean, they can if they really want to, but you don't need to. How are we going to get the most training result from the least hours of training, the least weight lifted, the least sets and reps,
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to live in the gym. So I think the same thing with role-playing game. How am I going to get the most out of the fewest pages? And that was certainly the approach here of like, what can I get out of a single D6? I'm more of your liquor guy than your beer guy. How can we boil this down and make it concentrated, rather 40% proof? Get the most out of the least volume.
I'm more of a beer guy, for the record, but not Foster's. I promise. Not Foster's.
Okay, so as well as a max wound, the weapons have got an optimal range, and at this optimal range they get a +1. So brawling works best at contact. Right, you're there, you've got your hands on him. Melee weapons work best at melee range, unsurprisingly. Handgun or a thrown weapon works best at short range. SMG or shotgun at medium range. Rifle or longbow at long range. And an anti-material rifle, if you get your hands on a 50 cal Barrett thing, very long range. Each range beyond that is a cumulative -1. You got to use your common sense. No, you can't brawl somebody at very long range. Doesn't matter what you roll. And all weapons except brawling are at -1 at contact range. So yeah, you can bring your rifle to a boxing match if you want to, but it's going to be hard to get it under.
Yeah.
So field example, Desiree is grappled by a ghoul entering contact range. Her machete now suffers a -1. So when she was in melee range, she had a +1. The ghoul comes in, and now she's like trying to swing the thing, but she could instead drop it and use brawling instead. Hanley is on a nearby hill looking over his iron sights at very long range, which is -1 for him. But he now looks to his scope and it becomes +1 because a rifle or bow scope extends the optimal range by 1 band further out. Doesn't make you more likely to hit. It just extends that range. So very long range becomes like long range for you. Armor we've already talked about, but there's also cover and concealment. Cover blocks all attacks, like a big concrete block or something. Concealment blocks sight, but not bullets. So, like a shower curtain. They can't see you, but it's not going to stop the bullet.
I'm remembering a specific scene in No Country for Old Men, but go ahead.
Yeah. There was a great instance on some army training course. We had sort of firing an automatic rifle. It was actually an SLR that was set up with a gun barrel instead of a rifle barrel. It had a little iPod that slid out. I don't think there were very many of them made. But anyway, the corporal had us fire at these targets. And he put the targets behind some cover or concealment. And so there was a 8mm thick, or 30-inch thick steel plate. And I was impressed. The rounds went through that. 7.62 rounds went through that. There were sandbags, completely stopped. And there was a bush, and he held up the target, and it was all full of holes. And he goes, "Oh, this fella's in trouble."
Yeah. It's like when, you see a Hollywood movie and the good guys are in a car and they're like, as bullets are pinging off of no. They put as little stuff in a car these days as possible. No,
the round that hit you by accident or by luck hurts just as much as the one that hit on purpose. So,
yes.
Anyway, now this one, I've got to think of a better way to write it, but basically this is my hostage taking rule, because this always comes up in modern game. You got the hostage, got the gun to the head, and somebody wants to shoot the hostage taker, but doesn't want to shoot the hostage. What rules do we have for that? And also the D&D thing where they fire into melee. Somebody wants to fire the bow into melee. Right. What I've always said is, first you do your two-hit roll against your target. If you hit him, awesome. But if you miss, now you do a second two-hit roll against the guy who's right adjacent to him. You might hit the hostage or your mate, whatever. So be sure of your shot. Because I know in D&D, it hasn't happened so much in the modern and post-apocalyptic setting games I've played, but in D&D, many times it's happened, and the own party was doing more damage than the enemy was. There was a lot of friendly fire going on. Stop firing into the... you become more careless when you got hit points.
I'm reminded of, and this actually angered a lot of fans, Hackmaster, which is probably the direct antithesis to a system like this, but in Hackmaster, there was a bug, and I want to ask you about bugs here in just a second, but there was a bug in the rules that they had set up for what happens when you fire a missile weapon into melee combat in Hackmaster. And it turns out that it was better if you aimed at friends in melee and fired at them, because the odds are you will hit one of the enemies a little bit more often than you'll hit your friends.
That's very
and people reached out to Kenzer and Co. and were like, "Yeah, this is really screwed up. Are you gonna fix this?" And basically the response was, "Lol, no."
Yeah, it's stupid. I guess they figured, fits in.
Then they figured it was funny enough, the tone of Hackmaster made that fit perfectly, I guess. But that brings me around to something, because we've talked about a lot of the rules, and and I know, and folks in the stream audience know, whether you're watching over on X or watching on YouTube, we appreciate you. Gamers are gamers, and we will find exploits and 100,000 Bic pens, the peasant railgun, silly shit like that. When you were playtesting this, and you mentioned you did playtest it,
yeah,
did you guys just hit on something where you're like, Kyle, what were you thinking? This will let me throw my machine gun and kill somebody with it faster than if I shoot them with it. I mean, obviously that's not the case, but did you run into anything that was like, oh yeah, I need to fix that? That's
No, I didn't run into any great absurdities. And I think that's probably because of my previous experience doing game systems and play testing them. So I was able to spot possible absurdities before I even wrote them down.
right.
Yeah, I think I might have a skill in game system writing now. Not enough to make a living, but thinking in game terms, I don't get the no and results when I write a game system now. I get plenty of no but, but I don't get any no and result. I don't get critical failures when I'm doing game design now, especially because like it's so simple.
Yeah,
So any stupidity would just shows up straight away.
Yeah, I think I moved from no and to no but with writing Crom. Same thing, you know. I was at no and for a long time. It's like, you know, oh, can I just by reading a couple of white papers on Python make my code do this? No, and it will lock up your PC. Congratulations. Reboot, you know. So I got to the no, but it only crashes back to the desktop. It doesn't take the whole thing down in a house fire. So yes, I feel you there. I am with you in the joy of moving from no and to no but.
John Strain wants to know what a peasant railgun is. How about you, Tom? I'll just dash off for a moment.
Okay. So, John, in 3rd edition, the act of handing something to someone, like if you're in a dungeon hall and you look over your shoulder and you say, hand me a torch, that takes no time. They said handing something to someone directly in front of you, directly behind you, to your left or to your right, whatever, within 5 feet takes no time. But literally. So some geniuses came up with the idea of getting a line of 100 peasants, and the peasant in the back of the line hands a wooden baton to the peasant in front of him, who hands a wooden baton to the peasant in front of him. And basically, because it takes no time to do that, if you factor in the weight, the baton, by the time it reaches the last peasant, just depending on which version of the story you heard, is moving at like a significant Mach number or a significant decimal percentage of the speed of light. So that by the time the last peasant throws the wooden baton, it's going to like vaporize a mountain or reduce a frost giant to colloidal steam and the one behind him, or blast a castle into rubble. That is the peasant railgun, and it is as damn ridiculous as it sounds. So yeah, we don't much talk about the peasant railgun in serious terms, but it is completely bonkers what people would come up with the whole, this is the peasant railgun is when you've had way too much yes and to drink.
Okay,
but fortunately, no DM worth his salt is going to let that's like when a player says, "I'm going to build an RPG out of a heavy crossbow and a bag of holding rolled up into the nose cone of a projectile and a portable hole behind it, and a little holder behind it. So when you fire it at someone, a portable hole goes into a bag of holding and does the whole." Envelops everything in a 20-foot diameter space and blows it into negative reality or something like that. That is a no and right there. So yeah, we don't peasant railgun, we don't bag of holding and portable hole RPG. Anyway,
So here we go on with the rules, and this is where it gets a little bit more thespian again. You got stress for your character. You got stress of three kinds: hunger, fatigue, and distress. Hunger is obvious enough. Day without food is a point of hunger. Fatigue occurs after any combat. After any combat, you fatigue. After a hard day's march or a night of less than 6 hours sleep. And then distress. From your first exposure to combat, seeing friends badly sick or injured, emotional conflicts with others, seeing Cthulhu in the loo or something, and so on. That gives you distress. Hunger subtracts from all your brawn skills. So if you're hungry, you do not shoot as well, you do not fight as well, you do not run as well, you do not do athletics as well, and so on. Fatigue affects all your brain skills. So that will affect your observation, your technician, your science, and all that sort of stuff. And distress affects all your soul skills, which is things like speech and interview and even like tracking and things like that, amongst all your soul skills. Now, it's one a day for food or fatigue. Bear in mind with the food, we're not talking about somebody who's on a hunger strike and they're just sitting there in a prison or something somewhere. We're talking about someone who's not eating, but they're doing hard march. They're doing adventuring, right? They're doing hard marching across country. They're getting into fights and all that sort of stuff. So that burns through. So you get a -1 on those relevant actions, which quickly starts. So it immediately makes you like non-professional. If you were a professional in say melee combat, now you've got a day's without food after a hard march. You're now at -1, so it's a net 0. You're equivalent to a non-professional because you're just hungry and so on.
I've seen it before. You see people start acting hangry and they get unreasonable.
Yeah,
I'm not even kidding. You somebody's blood sugar gets low and they'll start making judgment decisions and acting out.
Yes, and distress. Now you can so you can reverse it. Obviously, hunger is dealt with by food. You can't just go, I've got three hunger, so I'm going to eat my normal day's food plus 3 more days of food. No, that doesn't work. It's going to take a while to get over. Fatigue. I've got 3 fatigue. Can I just sleep for a day and a half? No, it's like, so it might take some time. And the same for distress. Now you can buy them off. So if you have alcohol, you will reduce your distress, but you will increase your fatigue. If you have stimulants, you have caffeine or illicit drugs or whatever, if you have stimulants, it will decrease your fatigue, but it will increase your distress. I was trying to explain this to someone, so I showed them a clip of, remember Bobcat Goldthwait from Police Academy?
Mm-hmm.
That goes, that guy.
Yes, I know who Bobcat is.
He has that high level of distress, but he's not fatigued, right? He's always very lively.
Yeah.
He's not tired. Yeah. Anyone who's like stayed up really late for a day or so and had lots of caffeine and so on to try to get through it, has had that experience. You basically become Bobcat Goldthwait.
It's true. It's true. Ask the guy who sat up for 28 hours on hurricane watch.
Yeah.
And a bunch of you guys were here for that stream too.
By the end, you're.
I think mine manifests in an almost Goldblum-esque level of pauses in my speech. It's just part of my limbic system just says, we're going to take a nap. Just like 30 seconds, dude. You stand there and say whatever. We're taking a nap. And I'm just,
this is a narrative sort of thing. At 6 stress in any one area, the person is non-functional. You're at -6 and there's only a 6-point result. So, and they'll suffer a permanent consequence. You're permanently distressed by seeing Cthulhu in the loo.
Sandy would have gotten a kick at a Cthulhu.
Yeah. Right. So that's the more thespic sort of stuff. Okay. Now we come to downtime. All right, there's no leveling up, there's no experience points or anything, but what you can do, the idea is you have a mission or two and then you have downtime. Downtime's like 3 months where you settle down somewhere peaceful.
Okay.
During downtime, you recover from wounds automatically. Normally this takes time, weeks or months or whatever, and requires a competent physician around. But if you have downtime, even if you don't have a competent physician, you just have somewhere quiet to go. You can lie there. Doesn't Bilbo do that at some point? Like he lies around recovering from wounds? Can't remember.
When Thorin and company get to Dale, after they escape the Elven Woods, they spend a while recovering. And of course, in the Lord of the Rings, Frodo, Merry, Sam, and Pippin, they spend months in Rivendell. So yeah, they have, to use the parlance of the day, long rests aplenty in Tolkien's books, so he can describe beautiful things to us.
All right, so you recover from wounds. You get rid of any stress that you have. So that hunger, fatigue, and distress all goes away. You have 3 months. You've got your long service leave. You relax. You can train or teach a skill. You can assist or develop an ally, prepare for a future mission, build or maintain a facility. We'll get to that, the stronghold, and craft or repair items. All right, now training. This is where you get new skills. I struggled a bit with this. I almost didn't put it in, but I thought, no, people will want to get new skills. So training requires 6 ticks to get a new skill. You resolve this on the chart in a normal way, somewhere between a no and a yes and result. The no and result is you cannot ever learn this skill. You're unteachable. It just, something doesn't sit right with you. You can never learn this skill.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's just no progress. No, but is no tick. You didn't learn anything, but you get a +1 next time. You're sort of halfway to starting to understand.
Right.
Yes, but is you get 1 tick, but you get a -1 on the next attempt. Yes is 2 ticks gained, and yes and is 3 ticks gained. Now, you get a +0 if you're self-taught. You're just trying to teach yourself how to do this. You get +1 if if you have a teacher who has a skill, like this place. And you get another +1 if the teacher has speech, if they're able to explain themselves. And another +1 for institutional context, like a classroom or team training, army recruit course, that sort of thing. You can see how this changes the odds. Like something like army recruit course, you can have +2 or 3. So the no and the no results become impossible, maybe the no but. You usually get some result. 6 ticks, so you'll observe that it takes a minimum of 6 months to get a new skill. But again, remember, the level of skill you're getting is a professional level of skill. You could now make a living with this once you get it. So it should take a little while to get taking downtimes. So there's allies, strongholds. This was a little bit innovative, I thought. Strongholds, you build facilities. I wanted to have a bit of base building. I myself enjoy that, playing games like State of Decay and things like that, where you've got base building and it helps your characters when they're running around having the adventures. It's places for them to heal, places for them to get food or develop their skills or whatever. I think this adds a bit to a game. And it also, if you have something like a stronghold, it deals with the murder hobo problem of players just wanting to run around and shoot stuff or stab stuff, kill things and take the stuff. Gives them a purpose. So it's it's an early version of that Lord level of play in D&D. You've got this base of operations and you go out from that base, you do missions, and then you come back. So the stronghold, it could be like castle in D&D. It could be a forward operating base in a military area. You know, your special forces, you operate out of this base. It could be a spy den. You know, the spy kids come back and they get the information from the guy. It could be the bat cave. It's the stronghold, the place where they go and they skill up and so on. If you visit, yeah. I'm with you on there, Rob. Okay. Now, what I thought was innovative in this, you've got your facilities, things like a kitchen, garden, or gym or training yard, that sort of thing. Each of these facilities is tied not to a skill, but to the general category of brawn, brains, or soul. Going back to the skills, remember the brawn, brains, and soul skills. Each facility adds +1 to its category. A character may maintain 1 skill per facility point in that category. Okay, so for example, if the place has got a kitchen, garden, a sleeping quarters, and a kitchen, it's got 3 brawn. Now, if your character has got 1 brawn skill, they're set up, right? That guy who does a melee and that, okay, he doesn't have a place to practice his swords, but he's got a kitchen, feeds him. He's got a kitchen garden, also helps feed him. He's got a sleeping quarters, he can get a good sleep. He can go and practice on his own, he'll be fine. But if you get a place that's only got a kitchen, and that guy's got melee skill, just got melee skill, okay, he's cool. But if he's got melee skill and brawling and strength, the place can't support him. His physical demands are so great, he needs a good place to sleep. He needs a good source of food. Okay, the kitchen can make that crappy food taste good, but he needs a kitchen garden or an animal pen that provides a meat or provides the vegetables or whatever. He needs a good place to sleep.
So Arnie's not going to be crashing on your couch.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to sleep here. I would go to the hotel, the 5-star.
Like Rocky goes back to his apartment and he sleeps. He goes into his kitchen and he downs his raw eggs. He does not crash out in the gym. Mickey would let him stay, but he doesn't crash out in the gym. That's not what a champion fighter is going to do. Does that make sense, guys?
No, that makes perfect sense.
Narratively, it gives players a reason to build the place up. Gives them a reason to build the place up. Now, each facility has to have someone assigned to build it and to maintain it. During the downtime, this requires a role. Where's my chart? Oh, I didn't stick the chart in yet. Sorry, the document's a bit of we call it a living document, which is my excuse. I haven't finished it yet. Your role, and obviously you've got to get a yes result for the facility to be built. Yes, but the facility works, but it requires 2 people to maintain it. Yes, it works. And then the yes and result, it doesn't require anyone to maintain it. It's just been set up so well, it's self-running. The idea is one person's assigned to it, everyone uses it, everyone pitches in and helps clean up the sleeping quarters, everyone pitches in and helps plant tomatoes or whatever. But there's one main person who's assigned to it, that's their full-time job. This is where it's good to have your whole stable of NPCs. All those guys with 1 skill and no nature suddenly become more important and useful. So as well as building up the facilities itself, you want to build up the non-player characters, bring them in. You've got your little post-apocalyptic stronghold. Okay, we've got the gas, the gasoline.
The gasoline.
Right? But we need people to run things and to make them happen. Or we need the pigs producing the gas. All right. We need these resources being produced to keep people going. If your skills are unsupported during the downtime, you start losing skills. This, by the way, explains raiders, explains why they exist and why they're so useless. Raiders don't have a stronghold. They just go, they're nomadic. They go from place to place. So they all lose their skills. But because they lost their skills, They can't produce what they need. Because they can't produce what they need, they take it.
That's why Lord Humongous was out there, and he couldn't he couldn't pot Max in the dome, despite the fact he had that 44 long barrel, you know.
Yes, it didn't
with a scope yet. And
steady
aim, and he couldn't prang Max and stop him from rolling in with a semi. His skills had degraded.
Why did Lord Humongous not have much in the way of tactics? Why were his guys not engaged in fire and movement? We'll come to that a bit. Yeah. Possessing the skill also provides the context for that skill. So if you've got firearms skill, you also know firearms tactics. You know fire and movement. You know room breaching and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. Similarly with melee and all the rest. And the same would apply if you've got physician skill. You know how to run a team of medical people as well.
You flip that on its ear. Papalago's tribe inside the fortress with a gasoline, they had the tactics to do we're going to hide the fuel in this school bus instead of the tanker, and had decoy vehicles and all that.
Yeah. You may also, if a stronghold has more facilities than needed, so if it's got 4 brawn facilities and the highest anyone's got is 3 brawn, the surplus may be traded with other settlements. E.g., our extra vehicle garage for your animal pen will give you vehicle repair in exchange for meat. Or it improves morale. Yep. If you've got more facilities than everyone needs, everyone's happy.
Now, let me ask you this. I think this is a perfectly cromulent question, Kyle. What about the ranger who lives off the land?
He never has downtime. Your skills only degrade or improve in downtime.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. Clear as crystal. There you go, Doc.
You have 3 months off, your skills may degrade. If you're always out in the field, you're constantly using, we don't have to tick the skills being used or anything. They're constantly being used because you're out there. They don't degrade. You go on home on holiday. This is why soldiers don't go on. Normally, if they can at all help it, if a soldier goes on leave, when they come back, they do some retraining. Sports people, they have an off season. They come back, they don't go straight into a match. They have a period of training and practice before they start doing it, don't they?
I mean, right now, I think either next month or the month after, pro football starts official camp.
Yep, they start into that. So your skills only improve or degrade during downtime. If you never ever have downtime, your skills will never degrade. But on the other hand, if you never have downtime, you are going to have to roleplay every single day that your character is wounded or has stress. Every day you're going around at that -2 from that yellow wound, that gut shot that you had. And you're going to be -2 to all activities involving your gut, which is your whole body, basically. So probably all brawn skills. You're going to have to roleplay every one of those days. If your character has 3 distress because they saw Cthulhu on the loop, you're going to have -3 to all soul skills. You're going to be talking to people and twitching and stammering and all your social interactions with. So if you want to go around and never ever have downtime, that's fine. Your skills won't degrade, but you're going to struggle through every single day. It's the same as like a professional job. If you never ever have time off, then yeah, your professional skills won't degrade, but you will degrade. So what I always think is interesting in role-playing game system is to give players choices. Yeah, you can do that, but there's a cost. That's why it's yes, but. Can I do this? Yes, but. All right, so there's the facilities, just as you imagine, chicken or pig pen and medical bay for brawn and stuff, and then things like apothecary and a library and a generator for brains and so on, and then soul things as like chapels and a message board and stereo and so on. So the default's kind of post-apocalyptic. Strongholds define a group's long-term viability. Raiders and loners, lacking any stronghold at all, either spiral into stress and wounds without downtime, or take downtime anyway and lose skills. Settlers grow and retain them. The settlement is not just a refuge, it is what makes growth possible. Okay, so now we get into hex crawling.
Bum, bum, bum. It all comes back to hex crawling.
One hex at a time. A hex does not represent any particular distance or physical area. It's just a full day's march. So it's probably a small area if you're doing wooded hills, and it's probably a large area if you're doing open plains. Doesn't matter. It's one day's march across that. I mean, your characters aren't surveyors with sextant or what's the surveying tool? You know, they got a little scope and they use it to determine distance.
Surveyors. Oh, I used to know this. My skill degraded.
Anyway, they're not surveyors, right? They don't know the exact distance. They just know, how long does it take me to walk across this? Now, here's the thing. Terrain does not change unless triggered. You don't need to roll for new terrain. You're walking in the hills. Okay, we go another day. You're walking in the hills. We go another day. Terrain changes when the party changes direction. Because this, I was like, how do I deal with the terrain soup that you get in random generated maps? You know, you get the mountain next to the desert, next to the lake, you know, which you do get from time to time in the real world, but like when you extend the map enough, it just becomes a soup instead of having, you know, like a string of mountains or a string of lakes or whatever. The terrain does not change unless the party changes direction. They come across a major obstacle like a river or a ridge. There's a random event or encounter, or the referee breaks monotony. Like after 6 hexes goes, yeah, all right, you've come out of the hills and now it's mountains, whatever. So wilderness generation. This is also, at first I had charts of like hills and mountains and stuff. I thought, why not just have this on the master result chart as well? Just ask a series of questions. Is the ground elevated? Yes, and, oh, okay, mountains. No, and, oh, okay, it's a muddy ditch. Is the area wooded or overgrown? Yes, and, this is some badass bush. Makes Cambodia look like Kansas. No, and, oh, it's a desert. Everything's died here. Is there a water feature nearby? Yes, and, oh, you've come to the ocean. Is there a road, ruin, or settlement? Yes, and, oh, part of town. Is it hot? And this is the weather. Is it hot? With a +1 for the tropics and a -1 for cold regions. Is there precipitation? +1 in winter, -1 in summer, reversed in tropical regions. Then, wandering monsters and stuff. Is there an environmental encounter? Like there's a landslide or a sudden snowfall or just there's a big ditch or you find a cache of gear that somebody set up from before the apocalypse or whatever. Is there a living encounter? Okay, and we've got charts for that. Environmental encounter, everything from quiet land to active disturbance, like fire, sinkhole, storm, and so on. Living encounter, there's passive animals, faint signs, predatorial animals, a group of strangers, an observation, somebody's watching you. Not sure why, and then trap or lure. And then there's the strangers, farmers, scavengers, travelers, nomads, militia patrol, raiders, and outsiders or unknowns. But then you do a reaction roll. The raiders might be friendly. Why? I don't know. We have to figure that out in play. The local farmers might be hostile. Why? Maybe they just met the raiders. I don't know. They're wary. They're wary every time they see strangers now because they just got raided. You still do the reaction roll. You know, reaction roll. Do they act in a friendly way? Yes, and, oh, they come up, greet you, offer you gifts. No, and they immediately attack. That's it, right? And you just do that for each hex. That's it.
And it's fairly straightforward. And being a hex, the D6 works very nicely for picking a random direction to wander in also.
Exactly. And then there's scenario planning. Could be lots of reasons for scenarios, like when you don't have a stronghold, maybe you want a stronghold. If you do have a stronghold, okay, we want to have a library, but we don't have any books. Oh yeah, we heard of this abandoned library in the ruins over there. Let's go check it out. Oh, but we have to pass this raider group. Okay, gets complicated. Example. So campaign rhythm suggests one mission followed by a downtime block. Creates a satisfying seasonal rhythm. Your characters age. The younger ones in the settlement start growing up and so on. For example, the gully hears of a water cache 5 days west. A gang knows too. A caravan is forming. Who's sent? What route? Will there be trade or a fight? Then there's some GM guidance. Use rolls only when outcome matters. If the PCs have time, tool, and skill, just let them succeed. State the stakes clearly. This is a roll because you're crossing exposed ground under watch. You don't just say, give me a roll. You say, why? Every roll must shift the possibility. If nothing changes, skip it. Now, this is my personal GMing philosophy, but it's my game, so I can impose it on you. Do not reward success or punish failure. Just enforce the outcome. Track all consequences. You kill the prisoners. Somebody else finds the dead prisoners. If you're captured, what's going to happen to you? You let the prisoners go. Maybe they'll come back armed again. Who knows? It depends on them. Maybe they'll speak well of you. Who knows? We let the dice decide. And you can, of course, adjust the game to suit the tone. Simplify or omit the stress. Restrict wounds to green. You just get bashed up, you never get healed. Ignore strongholds. And then there's how to give a briefing of SMEAC, just Australian military style. I think it's useful when you have a distinct mission. Situation: biotech lab seized by hostile civilians possible, weather rainy and cool, light wind. Mission: retrieve the data, rescue any civilians. Execution: entry via service tunnel, clear floor by floor. Admin and logistics: 2 reloads each. You've got medic and drone support. Fire only if fired upon unless civilians are endangered. Command and signals: Alpha leads, Bravo overwatch. Comms check every 30 minutes. RV at North Loading Bay if lost. By SMEAC, you just lay out the mission of what to do. This works more for episodic than campaign play. Okay, because in campaign play, the players decide their own mission. In episodic play, the GM kind of has to give you a message. If you've got an open game table and 3 of the 6 players at the table just sat down and they never met any of you before, you need to give them a mission. Otherwise, they'll just start a fight in the inn that they met in. And you need to give them a mission, I think. So you end up with more Star Trek than Babylon 5, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No. It does. It's a little more away team and a little less. I'm going to go argue with the forehead of the week High Council for the next 25 minutes.
Engine, you don't find it anywhere at the moment. There's a link to in the Discord. You'll find a link to the one that I'm updating on Google Drive.
Okay, so, Kyle, do you mind if I share that out here?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Let me pull that up real quick. I gotta fix it so Discord will let me actually copy and paste stuff. Copy that link. Copy link. And we'll see if it'll paste. So, yes, and it did paste. Yes, and my computer skill worked. So there you go.
And anyone can just pop into the Discord and I'll send them PDF or whatever.
Yeah.
But the one on the Google Drive there is the kind of living one. So if I make edits to fix things, then you'll see it there. Whereas if you get the PDF, then you get what you get. There's a more complete skill list, more details, some example equipment, environmental modifiers, dim lights -1, darkness is -2, and so on. Things like that. Some little modifiers in there. what clothing does. You can have some durability rules if you want to. Any gear left in poor conditions will degrade in quality over time, eventually to -1 or even become unusable. Any item of gear used by someone who lacks the relevant skill will degrade over time. If regularly used and not maintained, it is considered to be at -1 quality, worse than standard, more likely to fail, jam, tear, or break. So if you give a rifle to a professional soldier, they will look after it. If you give a rifle to a hick out in the sticks or to a child soldier in the Congo or something, then it is gradually going to degrade in quality.
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends on the rifle. If we're talking about a bolt action missing the mat,
well, they'll all
maybe
degrade.
not.
They'll all degrade in quality eventually because
no, I understand that.
Yeah, some are more durable than that, but whatever.
Yeah.
The game master can.
We might meme about the Mosin or the AK-47, but guys, anything's gonna rust up.
They'll rust up and get mud in it and get the barrel bent and all that sort of stuff. And and here's just a little bit about tactics of bounding over watchful fire and movement, and how suppressive fire works and how room clearing works and stuff. Just sort of slotted that in. And then there's an example scenario called Through the Woods, where you're part of a team dispatched to recover survivors from a known civilian refuge, an abandoned school in contested territory. Raiders have been reported in the area and night is falling. So this could be post-apocalyptic or a civil war kind of scenario. This is your, what was called The Sun something, had Bruce Willis and Monica Bellucci, and they're in
Tears of the Sun. Tears of the Sun.
Yeah, an African country and a bunch of civilians are being rescued, taken to a safe haven. Mission: locate the civilian group, evacuate them from the school, and escort them to a secure outpost at least 3 days travel away. Ensure as many possible survive. You have limited supplies. You will choose the route raiders may pursue. Execution: expect initial resistance at the site, then ongoing encounters and stresses as you guide the group across dangerous terrain. 3 main routes offer different risks. Admin and logistics: civilians can carry food but are otherwise non-combatants. You begin with 9 man-days of dried rations. You will need more. Fatigue, hunger, and morale will affect performance. You go a day without food, hunger, brawn skills degrade. The civilians are upset at being in a violent conflict. They gain distress. Their soul skills degrade. Soul skills include things like speech and interview. So they start getting snappy with each other. Or they start withdrawing and so on. You've got to manage that group. Command and signals: you're in charge. The civilians may argue, panic, and defy you. Manage them or don't. Your choices will echo. In that, the civilians are found in an abandoned primary school with 1 to 6 raiders present. A second wave of 1 to 6 raiders may arrive during the night. Safety lies at least 3 days away by any route. There's 10 different civilians with different personalities and backgrounds, and some of them dislike each other. So these tensions may erupt into arguments or refusal to cooperate under pressure. So that's a bit of a survival sort of thing, because then you start going, okay, well, we've got enough food for the civilians or for us. Am I going to give up my food to the civilian? I don't want to see that kid go hungry. But if I have hunger, I've got -1 to all my brawn skills. That includes firearms. And I need to fight to keep them alive. Mm-hmm. So do I feed the kid so that the kid doesn't cry? Or so the kid can keep up a good pace? Or do I not feed the kid? The kid slows us down because they're hungry and crying. But I'm then in a position to defend and so on. So you get all these choices. Like I said, I think role-playing scenarios that are interesting are about choices. It's a bit thespian, I know, but anyway, and that's about it.
So, I mean, it is fascinating. It does seem to be, and by the way, I mistyped. I said it was yes, and it's yes, but it does seem to lean into the sort of boots on the ground scenario, survival scenarios, modern military scenarios, but there's no reason that this couldn't be dovetailed into a fantasy setting, an Old West setting, a Roman historical setting, whatever.
Well, I'd have to have a magic system for fantasy, but definitely Roman and things like that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
you could have what was that one? There were two movies that came out in succession. There was Legion of the North and Centurion, or something like that. Like one was about the story of the Legion of the Ninth. There was a legion up in England that just disappeared one day.
I have vague recollections of hearing about that.
Yeah. Well, there's a movie about that, and they get ambushed by Picts or whatever, and this guy escapes. And then there's a follow up. Well, not a follow up. It wasn't officially a sequel. It was a totally different production, but it was a sequel because I think it followed the guy afterwards. That same character in his attempts to recover the eagle.
Mm-hmm.
There was I think they might both have been based on. There was a writer called Rosemary Sutcliffe or something. She wrote a book called Legion of the Ninth. She wrote these young adult novels. They were aimed at teenagers, and I think that was it. I remember reading that when I was a kid. There's a couple of movies like that. So that kind of like behind enemy lines, but you're a Roman and they're Picts or whatever. Same deal.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you could have the same sort of thing too. You could be like the Roman legionaries operating out of a fort and doing little missions around, a fort on the borderlands. A little keep on the borderlands.
As it were, I was going to say, it's a little keep on the borderlands, as it were. So what now? Once this gets going, and you and I have talked about this before, the importance of a good pocket-sized role-playing game. You're aiming to get this up on Lulu.
Yeah, I chuck it up on Lulu. Yeah, probably flesh it out a bit. At the moment, it's about 6,000 words compared with. Compared with Conflict, which was 10,000 words, and Conflict made it to 48 pages, like so. And I think that worked fairly well.
It did. I still want the vehicle combat system for Conflict, by the way. Just FYI.
So, yeah, whether I'd need to flesh it out or just let it be 24 pages or something. I don't know. I'll see. But we'll play it online a few times and.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. And the standing order is for Kyle's game. This is Kyle's my co-host, but Wednesday nights I look to my left and I say your aircraft. So it's really his deal. So if you are a patron. If you are one of our YouTube members at any from $1 and up, because I understand there are free tiers over on Patreon, but as little as $1, if you want to get into this, if you want to be on a live stream game on Wednesday nights, Kyle, I'm guessing that is that is solely the order of the day. Then you can reach out to us via the Discord. I'm all over social media, wall to wall, so you can tap.
Do you want to roll up a character build? We'll take him to an adventure.
You know what? We've got a few minutes here. I think we've got a few minutes to the bottom of the hour. Why don't we do it, Kyle? I mean, we love to see things in action, and I can use the lovely on-screen die roller that we've got here, the dice tray on DD Dice, and we will proceed apace, as Gary would say.
All right. Roll one brawn skill. You need a D12.
A D12, okay. I just got to type something real quick here. That is for Pauper Knight, who I am entirely certain gets that joke, and if he doesn't, he needs remedial. But anyway, so I need a D12 Let's see here. Let's roll a d12. I roll a d12 and I get a 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Firearms. Your character has firearm skill.
All right. Bang, bang.
Okay, and now a brain skill.
11.
Technician. Some sort of technician, electronic, mechanical.
I am Steve Forcing. You might not like it, but this is what peak operator performance looks like.
Okay, a soul skill. D12.
A soul skill. Looks like a 4 on soul.
Foraging.
Not very empathetic. Oh, right. Foraging.
Foraging skill.
Alrighty.
Okay, so far you've got firearms, technician, and foraging. Okay, so foraging is like gathering from the wild, knowing what's poisonous, knowing what's good for you, and so on. You get to choose one other. I'm assuming you'll be in a party. If you're on your own, you get to choose 3 others. If you're in a party, then you get to choose one other.
Okay.
So choose one other. It can be any of the categories.
I'm going to do observation.
Rightio. All right, so there's the 4 skills. Now the nature. Roll a d6.
Alrighty. A 3. A 3.
Okay, you get to choose between greed and charity.
A charity, I think.
Okay. So the way the natures work is it doesn't dictate your personality. It's just one of their major characteristics.
Okay.
When you act against your nature, you gain distress. And when you act with your nature, you relieve distress. So in your character's case, if he's greedy, he goes, nah, fuck you, that's mine. He'll gain some, he can do it, but he'll gain some distress. When he helps people out and he gives them stuff, he feels better and he loses his distress. So he just saw Cthulhu on the loo. So he decides, all right, it's time to be giving. And then it makes him feel better afterwards. It relieves his distress. React to trauma with charity.
Okay.
Okay. Now he needs a name. Or she.
Let's see. A name. John.
John.
Yes. John Matrix. Hey, Bennett, let off some steam.
All right. There, that's your character done.
That's it. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
That's character generation. Oh, there's equipment selection as well, but you'll just have a piece of equipment appropriate for each skill as the default. So you'll have some sort of, so you've got, what have you got?
I've got firearms, technician, foraging, and observation.
Okay. You'll have some sort of firearm.
All right.
You will have a toolkit for whatever your technician skill is, if it's electronics, mechanics, whatever, whichever you choose to specialize in. You'll have some sort of toolkit. Observation, set of binoculars or something. That's a +0.
Can they be day-night binoculars?
That would be +1.
Ah, I see.
That would be +1. And then what's a foraging? I don't know what helps people foraging. A little guide or something.
Yeah, I would think like hell. What was it? What didn't you find like a 1914 Australian Boy Scout handbook?
Yes, yeah, or 1908 I think it was. Yeah,
there you go.
So tips like what to do when you find a dead body, which presumably happens more often wandering the wilderness in 1908 than it does in 2025. But
yeah. Now that's the streets of major coastal cities in the United States, but we're not going to talk about that.
This was written in England, 1980.
All right. John likes character generation. Very, very easy. Yes, it is. Robert Phillips said, with my charity nature, that I give lead to the needy and copper. No miser.
Yeah. So my reasoning is of those vices and virtues. Let's get back to them. Of those vices and virtues, everyone occasionally is lustful, is chaste, is gluttonous, is temperate, blah, blah. Everyone occasionally is these things. Everyone's somewhat prone. Your nature, if it's your nature, it means you are more prone. That's your thing. You are much more often like that. And that's your thing. It's part of your identity. It kind of grounds you and makes you feel better about the world. And it's kind of your default action. Again, you as the player are free to do whatever the hell you want. But your character will have that nature. If that makes sense. It's like a very loose alignment, if you like.
Yeah. No, I got you.
It's the classical 7 versus virtues and vices, but I took out sloth and diligence because nobody really wants a slothful adventurer. Yeah, so I mean that's character generation, and
I will save this guy to my documents folder here, so we can take John Matrix on an adventure next week. And now, again, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The campaign setting. It has been a slow apocalypse. Well, slow over several years rather than overnight. So what happened was there was a long recession, long and horrible recession.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a pandemic. And then a year after the pandemic, there was a war. And your character is in prison.
Oh, no.
For what? And whether he's innocent or guilty is up to you. Doesn't matter. Point is, he didn't even get to go to trial because part of the collapse of the various systems was the court system shutting down and slowing down.
Mm.
So he got arrested for this or that. They took him before a court. Bail was set at 100 grand. John did not have 100 grand, nor did anyone who liked him well enough to stump up the cash. So they put him in prison on remand, awaiting trial. 3 years later, there has not yet been a trial.
Mm.
Over the last year or so, John has seen many people leave prison before their sentence was up. And it became apparent to him that they were bribing their way out of prison. With the system shut down and the guards no longer paid, anyone who could bribe his way out or blackmail his way out was getting out. People were being let out. A week ago, his cellmate got let out of prison. And as far as he knows, he's the only one left in prison.
Beep.
He's sitting there feeling sorry for himself. And one morning, and you know, he hears occasional fighting outside and so on, and he hears rumors of quarantine section of the prison and so on. One morning, the cells don't open, and he's sitting there, and the lights go off, and the cell door opens. They're all electronically locked. Cell door opens, and he doesn't hear anyone or anything outside. Everything else has gone off outside, and that's how the campaign starts. And we'll find out if there's anyone else in the prison with you.
All right. Sounds fascinating. And I am looking forward to it. Kyle, this is an absolutely banger of a little RPG system here. John,
like I said, it's a bit thespy, but you know.
Well, we'll see how it works out. I think it'll be fun to try out. John Strayton seems to like it. And again, guys, I did put the link to the Discord. You can hop in and you can have a look at this if you want. And maybe you want to join us on Patreon or on YouTube memberships if you're not already. And get a little trigger time with Kyle behind the GM screen and us running around dying in hilarious fashion. But I'm looking forward to it, even if it's just you and I, for everyone else's amusement, Kyle.
Yep.
So
Well, Jason has requested access.
Excellent. There you go. That's all you got to do, guys. Just join us over on the Discord. You can scroll up a little bit. Let me see if I can. That is not right. That is the Discord link. You guys can hop on over and say hello to us on the Discord. But was there anything else that was resting on a troubled brow, Kyle, that you would like to discuss this fine evening?
No. In fact, I did send my son to bed last night. He was saying, not for being naughty or anything, it was just his normal bedtime. He was saying good night. And I've just been talking about some political affairs and how when he grew up, he was going to have to be paying much bigger taxes and stuff. And I said, anyway, son, that's that. Good night. Contemplate this on the tree of woe.
Excellent. All
and he got it because he saw the movie a little while ago and liked it very much.
As well he should. So Jason, there's the link to the Discord.
Yeah, he definitely gets it. He's getting all the culture references now. When Conan's crucified and the vulture comes up and pecks at his flesh, and Conan goes and bites its neck, and that Zach said, if it bleeds, he can kill it.
Smart man. All right. Well, thank you again, Kyle, for being here. Guys, there's a link to the Discord. Get in on this new RPG from Kyle because it's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, you can join us over on Patreon. The Patreon link is in the description down below, and it scrolls across the bottom. Or you can click, I think it's right over here for YouTube membership somewhere, and join us for as little as $1 a month, and that opens the door to Kyle's game table that we will do here on stream periodically. Thank you for hanging out with us, Kyle, and telling us about this awesome new RPG. And help yourself to the Hennessy and pistachios in the green room, and we will see you next time, my friend. As for myself, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and dip on out of here. It's been a lot of fun. I'm going to be back tomorrow night. We are going to jump straight back in to looking at Temple of Elemental Evil, our deep dive of Temple of Elemental Evil that we had been doing before. I took my little hiatus for the convention and for a little downtime, little Delver me time, but it's great to be back here. I want to say thanks to Gonzalo for the super. I really appreciated that, man. Definitely helping keep the lights on. And that's really all I've got. But the one thing I feel like we forgot to ask Kyle was, did he have a supplement coming out called Yes and Owl Bears? We'll have to find out later. Everybody, I'll talk to you soon. Peace. Good night.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.